more fun than the last one. So yeah, please enjoy. How do I share my screen here? Sure. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yep. All right.
Good. This looks amazing. Look.
All right. So welcome everyone to the fourth module. I'm going to talk about personalization of data, which is kind of, an extension of various AI, I would say, researches and application. Before I jump in, I just want to do a quick recap of big data. Since there are new people here, I think it's a good transition. So what kind of data do we have right now? Last time I kind of briefly talked about 6 of them. I added 2 more. Just a quick recap. By the way, if you have any questions, please just interrupt me. So traditional transaction data, I talked about your credit card transactions and whatever you purchase online, any interaction that's more traditional. We have it, and we also have web behavior data. Whatever you do on a website, a click, a stream, those are web behavior. Text data, Twitter, whatever you put on your Facebook status, those are text. Geolocation, your GPS, all the timestamp that you use will have that. If you upload a photo and then you do like a check-in of where you are, that's geolocation data. Sensor, I think we talked about it, weather sensor and traffic, temperatures, stuff like that. Social network, image data, and audio data. So you can record your story and upload to Instagram. Those are both video and audio all together. So basically, these are the type of data that we are able to collect. It's in various form and it's in a very fast pace. That's why we call them big data. Any question before I move on? Nope. Okay. So quick recap on artificial intelligence and machine learning researches. So there are different types of research going on, currently everywhere. We have universities, PhDs doing all the research. We have companies that's doing researches. Like I mentioned before, there are a lot of different areas to apply AI. Today, we're going to talk about specifically personalization and how the enterprises or even like different institutions are using data to personalize their user experience and just create more values. All right, so
Just one quick question. It might have been relevant to you, the prior slide, but so the sources of data collection, like what are like the big buckets of like the source of data? Is it just like, is it all hardware or are there other ways?
Hardware, hardware, software. Sorry, sorry.
From my personal experience, it's also from like companies' existing data.
Yeah.
So like I have a client where we actually I did a big data assessment, and really it's just this company is fairly large too, and they have sites all over the U.S. and over the world, and it's just a combination of data.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks DK. It's also like just various formats, survey. You can also collect them. You don't have to necessarily be online. Like some sort of census those are also the sources of data that you can collect.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep. So yeah, why don't we jump in, and this will be more a case study focused lecture. So this is the number one case that I think most people can relate to. Netflix has been very successful in using data to do two things majorly. One is create content, and one is personalized experience, the user experience. They are basically a pioneer in recommender system, which I'm also going to talk about. So let's talk about content creation, how they're using data. So they are investing a lot of money into their content, being, they are one of the largest, the largest streaming platform. They spent $15 billion in 2019, and I think it'll be additional $2 billion in 2020 this year. How they're spending those money, a lot of tough decision has to be made, and they have to carefully calculate, whatever dollar they're spending in content is going to come back, right? It's an investment. So let's take House of Cards in 2013. It was a very big gamble for them. Who has seen House of Cards or have at least heard of it? Anyone? Or this business case? No one? Wow. So yeah, so you have?
Yep, same here.
Yeah, so this is actually like a very successful case that they use to make their content, and I will tell you guys about how they actually did it. But basically, what happened is after they released this show, just within 3 months, they added 2 million US subscribers and 1 million international subscribers. And then just within a couple of months, they earned back their investment, which I thought it was like around more than $100 million or something. So they were committed to make like 2 seasons in a row, like all at once, and it was a very big risk. But they know that this is a risk worth taking, because they have direct relationship with this customer. Meaning, if you are a content creator, normally people go through like a third party. Let's say I make shows and I go through some broadcast company, right? Or I make some DVD retail. Like that's like you go through some middleman. They were able to skip all those stuff and directly connect to the customer because they have the platform. So because they have the platform and they were able to build this one-to-one relationship with the customer, they were able to track every single behavior and taste and all these data from the customer directly. So when they were actually making the content of House of Cards, like let's say, I can analyze all the data that I got from customer, and I can make all these 4 bullet points of insights, right? For examples, there are a large portion of the viewers, they love David Fincher's, David Fincher is like a very famous director who made like The Social Network and all these big hits. And they were able to find that people love Kevin Spacey as an actor. And the British version of House of Cards was actually a big hit, and a lot of people stream it. And most importantly, people who watch the British version of House of Cards also watch Kevin Spacey films or films directed by David Fincher. So they were able to just pull together all this information and say, okay, there are a large portion of the customer on our platform that's have this overlapping taste and characteristics. Let's make something, and let's see what happened. And it turned out that it was super, super successful. This is how they're actually using customers' data to create something that is like of value. Any questions so far?
What was the process? Like intuitively, if you and I were talking, and for example, I'm talking about like the movie Fight Club, and you could intuitively say, hey, if you like that, you'll like this other movie, and I would kind of get that. It's one thing to have raw data. What's the process of finding those connections?
Yes. So I think a lot of it is understanding your customer, and there, when we say process, there's a kind of business intuition process, kind of, oh, the higher level business strategy. If you like this, you might also kind of like that. But there are also data-driven processes, which is more machine learning based. So the machine learning, the algorithm can actually separate out all these segments of people into different micro, I'll say micro profiles with very sophisticated tastes.
Yep.
So this is just like a segment of their existing customers that they profile by all these, I guess, micro insights. They can have like tens and hundreds of different profiles. That's say, oh, there's a segment of our customer who loves rom-com plus some specific actors plus some specific country of setting, something like that. Just a lot of detail that they use machine learning to separate out.
Yep. Okay.
Question? No question. Okay.
No questions, but
yeah.
I don't want to take over. I don't want to like interfere, but are you going to talk about later how this was also used to help drive newer content, like newer shows, the characters, the storyline, how Netflix is using that data to come up with like really, really good shows?
That they are about to release? No. But so are you talking about like how they're doing it or what they're gonna make?
No, I don't know if you're gonna be talking about it later, but
I'm gonna talk about more of a personalization on user experience side, like the recommender system side, more.
Okay, never mind then.
Yeah, this is yeah, but feel free to jump in. When we open to discussion. Yeah, so this is the content creation part. And I'm gonna jump to the recommender system part, which is a lot more relevant in terms of personalization.
Question before you jump in. So I don't remember when I signed up on Netflix that I gave my birth date or gender or race. So I guess this age and race and gender is now one of the category for the machine learning. They gonna recommend like my next movie. I guess that's not the category. It is.
Yeah, it is. So I'll get to that. But
okay.
Every single thing that you do on the platform, they use it in one or the another kind of algorithm. So yes to your question. So recommender system, why is it so powerful, and why is why is it everywhere, right? Not only in the streaming application, it's also in like a bunch of different applications that we use today, because basically what it's saying is we can understand you more just from the data that you give us and the data that other people give us. So we know you more than you know you, and I'll show you guys how it actually works. And this is actually my area of research at the moment. So yeah, you will be fine. So recommender system, the type of the different types of data, and this is not the only things. Okay, like right now I think I have like 10 bullet points here, but in reality there are like hundreds, like thousands. But on a higher level, what's happening on like a streaming app recommender system, we get your timestamp, exactly what time of the day you watched and what day of the week, is, whether it's a weekday or weekend. You have all those records and the device you watch on, like is it iPad or is it like a desktop or iPhone or whatever. And nature of the content is like, we also studied the content itself, not only the user, but we want to understand the content. So like the House of Cards, we know there are a bunch of different characteristics to that content, and we're able to tie those characteristics, like, you know, politics or like drama or dark or all these elements of a content, we were able to tie back to you. So the nature of the content and the portion of content being rewatched, you know, we can know that whether what part of the show you watched 2 or 3 times, rewinding, you know, like the cool scene, those type of things. Search events. So if you type something in the search box on the platform, then that's also being recorded, even if it's like a typo or anything. So anything you type and press search, they have that data. Pause event, location. This is interesting. The third party data. So people, the companies, they're actually, I think I mentioned last time, they're able to buy data from other companies or license data. So for example, Netflix won't necessarily have your household income data or something, or who's what kind of neighborhood you live in, or how many kids you have. Like those type of things is more like it needs to be coming from data vendors, but they're able to get all the demographic data by licensing it, so they can include that and somehow tie it back to their customer. And final one is the social media, right? They can analyze whatever you comment online, your sentiment about certain topics, those type of things. You know, they can extract the keywords and add it into addition of for your taste or your emotion towards certain topics. Those are kind of the things that they're able to collect. And also to Lydia's point, personal profile, that's just very, very basic, right? When you sign up, you just give out your information and you create different profiles, user profile data. Questions? Is it getting creepy? Cool. So I don't want to get into like super detailed.
No pleasure.
But algorithm wise, they are actually research, like the two I'm showing here are just very high level, but now it's getting more and more sophisticated. But on a higher level, I would point out 2 things. If you look at the left hand side, there's this thing called collaborative filtering, which is actually finding similar users. So they're making the assumption that based on all these data here, you know, your watching habits, your taste, your location, everything, there are going to be users that's very similar to you around the world. So if you can look at the relationship here, they are a similar user. Because they both have the similar behavior, or they read, let's say they read both articles. Now that I identified their similar users, whatever the woman read is gonna be recommended to him. Is this does it make sense to you guys? Right. So this is actually done on a very, very large scale. So there are just 2 people here that we're comparing, but if you leverage the hardware, the computing power, and the algorithm, the machine learning, they're actually able to make this on the personal level at scale. So like they have what 140 million subscribers. They were able to do that for each and every single user. And on the right hand side, let's say I don't want to use something that's with similar user. They can do it based on content. So I think this is more dominant because they can study the content itself, right? Like I mentioned, politics, drama, dark, something like that. They can analyze similar articles and say, all right, because you watch House of Cards, I'm gonna recommend something similar to that. So in this way, there's no dependency on like what other people are watching. So these are just various high-level recommender system and how they work. Currently, it's getting more sophisticated. They just take into your personal habit, and it learns from yourself. So let's say I just watch different things in the morning, at noon or at night, certain time of day. They're able to pick it up from yourself, and it's getting more and more precise. So this is an overview of recommender system. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah.
Or comments? Yeah.
So you said the content-based filtering is more dominant, like in the industry. Is it because it's like more successful in getting this user to read the recommended content, or is it because like it's easier to just implement? Like, so I'm just wondering like which one is like more effective in getting the other person to read like what's
so yeah, when I say more dominant, I maybe I should modify that a little bit. I'll say it's simpler to implement, because based on the size of your company, normally you have limited resources of how much data you can collect from your customer too. So this requires basically a little less data than the collaborative filtering most of the part. Content-based is relatively simple. If you can just collect data on the items that you're selling, you can basically do that. So what I meant there was more like it's easier to implement, and it's one of the most like the earlier adaptation of recommender system.
But is it more effective than the other?
Case by case, really depends. Most companies nowadays, they do like a mix of both, which I can show you later. It's really case by case, like if you are selling merchandises or if you are recommending books or other stuff, it's case by case.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you said that the system is getting like more sophisticated by knowing people behavior, but isn't in some way like reinforcing that behavior in the person by showing kind of like the same content all over again?
Yes, great question. That's actually one of the hardest thing for people to tackle, the companies to tackle. So correct me if I'm understanding your question correctly. You're saying that if I learn that you like very dark content, I'm only gonna be able to recommend you to that direction and not helping you explore other content that you might like. Is that your question?
Yeah, in some way, like not only that you will be like recommending me that, but I feel like there's way more that people is like very busy and sometimes people it's just lazy. So if I go on Netflix and I want to watch like a different show, but I'm just like recommended something that I usually like, maybe I'm gonna be like, whatever, I'll just go with this one.
Yes. So that's actually influencing. their behavior indirectly in some way, like because they're only being exposed to certain choices. It's really in a way changing a person's behavior too. So yeah, that's still like a research. I know that's a topic that people's really doing their research. Like ultimately, are we changing our users' behavior and not really using their behavior, something like that? So that's a good question. Yeah. So here's a screenshot, right? So for those the topics for you, these are basically finding people similar with you through some sort of a collaborative mechanism. People like you also watch other stuff, then you'll be seeing those stuff. And because you watched, it's more like content based, like this thing on the right hand side, because you watch Narcos, and there's just, this is based only on the content, right? Doesn't depend on other people. So to Kite's question, companies are actually using both or more, or like a dozen different algorithms on a single platform, just to make sure that they're capturing everything that they can recommend to the user. And this is what happened to Netflix too. And I know there are definitely more that they're using. But yeah, every single carousel is a different model. Okay. Cool. So I'm gonna jump into more use cases just to help you guys kind of think differently later when you use other platforms. But to open you guys the eyes to see how recommender system actually work and how personalizing the data actually is being done with all these different companies. And then we can probably come up with some ideas on our own too. So let's try Amazon. So if you look at this page, how do you think they're coming up with all these recommendations?
Based on what you researched before, what you buy.
Anyone else?
A lot of things, even what you watch, because they have the shows now. They also have music. They also have Fire devices. They have Alexa. I mean, they're collecting data from everywhere.
Yeah. So this particular case, right? If you can see, so Amazon, they're not only selling, they're not just an e-commerce website, right? They also, like DK said, they also have like Amazon, like the TVs and musics, and if you have Prime, you can watch Prime videos, right? So let's say I'm a Prime member and I watch a lot of shows on Amazon Prime, then they know, okay, you're probably a binge watcher, and they are gonna recommend you a bunch of show to watch, of course, but they can also recommend you products because you watch too much TV and you have dry eyes. And if you see here, you probably need like a energy drink or popcorns or some comfortable blanket, something like that. So this is the level that they're doing. It's cross business departments too, right? Amazon Prime Video is one of their business. E-commerce is another business, but because they're collecting data from the same user, they were actually able to help helping each other, each different business, and ultimately help the entire enterprise. So this is what we are getting from here. Any questions or comments? Okay. And next one is Grupa, and you can see that they have different deals. I didn't make this profile, by the way. Just totally totally coincidence. But based on, they can also leverage your personal data, personal profile, your location and everything, and make some sort of deal that can recommend to you. So for example, you're a business person and you live in Chicago and you always, I don't know, do a lot of traveling or something. They can actually figure that out and come up with deals like, oh, you know, some vacation, or, you know, the for men items, stuff like that. So it's being used everywhere. And if you like, along the way, if you have ideas, or if you're wondering, are they actually using, how about this type of data or that type of data? If you have any ideas, just shout it out, and the chances are they might actually be using those. And you know, for the younger generation, this is actually this also has recommender system or personalization in it. Again, using profile, time of day, like all the stuff that I mentioned before, your demographic, your taste, and they can actually learn from images too. So this is actually what I want to touch on. They have, because they can study the content, right? They can recommend similar content. In this case, content can be this guy's interest or this guy's photo. Like, is it blonde hair or not blonde hair? Like, those type of data can be collected. So just based on your behavior, let's say you keep liking, I don't know, blonde hair. This is a bad example, but over time, the algorithm can actually improve itself, and to recommend out of like 10,000 people, the top 100 that is gonna be high probability of matching with you. This is another example, personalization.
Hey, so question on that. So if I think about how they collect data outside of like the channel, whether it's through search or you have an IoT device that collects sensory data, assuming that so like there's different ways to get that data in there. I could, as you said, I could input my data, age, interests, or I could basically interact with the platform, and the platform will collect data, which is I think what you're talking about here. How much of this is third parties collecting and selling data?
You mean this specific company, or the just in general? Good question. That's also depending on, it's really case by case. Some company will have the resource to license the third-party data. Some companies won't. It's case by case. So, and it depends on the nature of your business too. For example, if your business doesn't have a platform at all, right? There's no direct relation. Let's say you're an investment firm or something, or some sort of research institute that don't have a platform, then chances are you probably base a lot of your business or your operation on third-party data or open source data.
Okay.
So yeah, to answer your question, how much is actually from data vendors? Depends.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? So normally, if you're a business, this is just from my experience, I'm not super sure, maybe DK can jump in. If you're a business that's kind of more to consumer facing, like B2C, chances are you might need to have, if you can't collect data directly from your customer, chances are you will have to get the supplemental user data somewhere else. That's to enhance your business.
I would say even some popular websites or any sites that you go to where you agree for the website to track cookies, they're collecting data on you to help either enhance your shopping experience or later on down the road sell that data to someone else.
Hey, on that point, like in the European Union, they have the GPDR thing where basically you have to opt in now. I guess otherwise, like your experience interacting with these platforms may be somewhat limited. Is that what you're talking about, where you basically have to opt in to basically give them your data in order to utilize your services?
Yeah, I mean, most websites now, before they used to do it very subtly. They used to track cookies without even asking you.
Yeah.
But a lot of popular sites now, they say, do you agree for us to track cookies?
Yeah.
You have to accept button. Most people do.
And that's actually a good point, Eddie, because now the rules are getting more strict, and there are actually legal consequences if you are handling your personal data incorrectly or not being careful. Right now, companies are not allowed to sell PII, which is tying to your name, like those type of data. They can kind of do like some sort of aggregation or some sort of like fuzzy, matching type of data. But like even for our company right now, it's just like we understand everything about our customer, we just can't identify them. So no personal names, no emails that can be going out from the company.
Yep.
Okay. I think this is the final one. I think this is another use of personalization. It's not only recommend you content to make you stay longer on their platform, right? It's also business opportunity, because every second your eyeball is on their platform. There's this is Instagram, by the way. It's tied to advertising, and they have done so well to a point where it's basically so hard to distinguish between a good piece of content or a piece of advertisement. So even things like this, right? Like watch videos you might like, it's just a bunch of cookie videos, right? But you won't be able to notice. By the way, the advertisers are paying them a lot of money, whether it's like a big advertisers or like the small ones. They were able to figure out your taste and just throughout your day, your behavior, when and what to insert into like the screens that you're seeing. So from here, right, like for Instagram, every time you hashtag something, every time you like some pictures, or every time you follow some things or person, you're basically telling Instagram, this is me. I like this, and I want to be more exposed to this. And you're telling them everything about you, so they can be very specific of how to make money out of you through advertising.
On that point, so if I think about Instagram, so it's an ad-based model. They basically get advertisers to basically pay, and that's how they monetize our data. If I think about Tinder, it's a subscription-based model, and so that's the reason why they optimize that, so that people can subscribe to that. And then I guess Amazon, it's about selling their products, and right. What are the dominant kind of like revenue models out there, and which ones are like the most profitable, or like what's everybody focused on these days?
That's actually a great question. That is a great question. I wish I have numbers to back my statement.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly, but I'm assuming advertising like free platform. That's easier for people to get on. Well, it's easier to get off as well, but nowadays everything is easier to get off. So as long as you have very relevant experience, like relevant content, relevant items, relevant to you, which can help you to stay on that platform longer, you're basically profitable, if it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the
That's
life.
why,
Yeah.
yeah, that's why this is our mission, right? To get you spend as much time on our platform as possible. I think that's most for most business, and the reason why they optimize that using data, using personalization, is that if you have personalization, people will find your product to be more relevant, which lead to longer stay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so that's, yeah. DK, you want to say something?
I was gonna say, Eddie asked a question that he would normally ask a consultant, and I can find that answer for you, bill by the hour. Jokes aside, I think most of the money, though, most of the revenue is made from actually the subscription fees itself.
Okay.
And then the side stuff can come later if they do sell that data. But as you said, it's really to try to keep the users on the platform as long as possible.
I see, because presumably that's like a 95% margin business, right? Every dollar that comes in, it's the same content. You can probably just monetize that, right?
Yeah, and some people even forget that they're paying a subscription fee, and that's just free money.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's all the examples that I have for today. I think we can jump into the discussion, which is I think we already kind of talked about it a little bit. I want to talk about common framework, and I encourage all you guys to participate in the discussion. What do you see after all these examples that the companies are doing? I know personalization and data. I mean, like, that's, yeah.
What did you say again? Sorry.
So what are the, some from here, right? Common framework. What do you see from all these examples that all these companies are doing, and maybe the ideology behind it? I can, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure it's like the right timing or something, but I see that people are very kind of gullible because, like, we're basically voluntarily telling all those companies how to use us. And if we actually feel, I mean, those things are basically rewarding for us as well, right? So it seems like it kind of makes me to rethink about the whole concept of privacy, if it's really required or not. And how do I thought about that concept till now, and how it will change throughout the time.
That's a good point. Yeah, definitely. I think we're giving up too much. But I think one thing I want to point out, I guess this might help you guys to think differently. What I was seeing from all these I guess, strategies is that we are truly of Genesis 3, 6, and 11, and the companies they understand that too. Let me give by an example. We always want something that can be more satisfying to me. So anything more relevant to me. I want this to be more personalized to me. Like this specific things have to be of that matches me, my taste. It doesn't have to be with other people. Like when I get on something, when I consume or use anything, I want it to be specially made to me, so my experience is good. So I kind of tied this framework back to just the me center type of idea, where the companies knows that if I make you feel good, if I make this product more relevant to you and you like it, and the chances are that this is just something that you will stick with. And I think this is just human nature. And as I was doing the personalization, it's not necessarily like the customer is not freaked out by it, you know, because they're actually getting something, like they feel good about it too. This is just something that I kind of, you know, got from the whole the data and personalization aspect. Anyone else sharing a different opinion?
Yeah, I'm gonna talk. So I think using data for like search engine optimization, or like if I watch something on Netflix and optimizing my experience, I guess that's okay. I think as DK was saying, what is a bit more concerning is when we give access to our data in exchange for services, and in some ways it's a form of not like physical enslavement, but like when I use Google or when I use Gmail, it's a free service. It's a free service that they provide, but in exchange they can search all my emails and do all these different things. Or if I opt in for my cell phone's ability to use location-based services, does that open me up to getting like a targeted ad, for example, when I walk into like a Burger King or something like that? And so that's all fine and good, but I wonder if that data is being used nefariously. I know they're doing some of that in Asia right now with the COVID tracking. Again, like it's another example of COVID accelerating the adoption of these technologies. I think they're justifying the ability to track people for the purpose of security and safety. And so I wonder what other like nefarious ways is this data being used, because we have no choice but to opt into it because we need to use some of these services and then we're dependent on them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say if I was in the C-suite level of like Netflix, what I would do is use that data for preferences and start creating content, picking out certain cast members, making certain shows or movies that are really tailored toward the general population. And then later on, I might even start subtly putting product placement, start selling the idea to companies that, hey, we can place your products in our shows. I mean, what good way would it be to help manipulate? I mean, it sounds bad, but because I have the general audience and I understand what the general audience wants, if I know most of the world's going to be watching this show, if I could sell that data and I can do product placement, I mean, I could see things going in that direction.
Yes, that's absolutely. I think they're already kind of doing it. I think really creating content that also has targeted advertising element in it when people don't actually realize, and I think that's definitely something that they're already getting their hands on. To Eddie's point, I think totally agree. Like all the examples that I was giving are more like, yeah, I can subscribe and I can just not subscribe. It's not really relevant. But the free platform where they provide the utility, that is actually one of the easiest and I think most influence or the largest reach, where something like Gmail or something like some service that you have to get on and for free, those are the opportunities where they can gather large scale data and something like COVID-19 tracking, right? Those type of things that they can do. So definitely that utility, free services.
And that's why Google is so successful too, is they're collecting data. Even like right now, as I'm walking around a park with my device, they know that I'm here. My phone also subtly captures audio or maybe images of where I am to help, increase their database.
Yeah.
And a lot of people use Google for searches. A lot of people use Gmail. So that in itself too, like even though if it's not subscription based, they're still making profit of being able to sell your data to other companies or target advertisements.
Yeah, and not just getting revenues from regular consumers, right? They can get revenues from the government too. For example, like something like disease prevention. Like we talk about this, like COVID-19 tracking. Like they actually know the disease spread faster than like healthcare system, because people who are getting sick, the first thing they go is not doctor. The first thing they go is Google. Like if I have this symptom, am I sick? And Google has a timestamp and the region location, right? So they can say, all right, in China at this certain time, there's all of a sudden like 100,000 people start searching for a similar symptom, that they know that there's a disease happening even before the government knows it. And they have the ability to actually go out and prevent those faster than the government. So this is a stage where I think, tie back to Eddie's point of this is accelerating the adoption of fourth IR. So yeah, if no one else want to make a comment on the common framework, I think we should jump to the
Say something very little. So from a political perspective, like the only reason why people gave power to governments is because in return they provide safety for you. So I think it's very interesting when we talk about technology and AR, because it could be like, I don't know, like maybe that's what's gonna provide us safety somehow later in time. So it could just shift what government means or who is our government in some way. So something to just like think about.
I think it's
So right now, I feel like out of fear, a lot of people voluntarily give information to government, and also they want to, whether like Googling symptoms, but also maybe like later there will be an app. I know in Korea there's like a self-diagnosis app where you can self-diagnose like your temperature, your heart, like, or even like measure your heartbeat, whatever. But I recently read an article that was talking about how, like, the same body temperatures and like your heartbeat that can diagnose or show symptoms of illness, they're the same measurements that can also predict when you will be happy or angry or sad. And so right now we are voluntarily handing over this information, but later, do you think we'll also get the opportunity to reclaim it? And is that, I don't know if that's like more of a blockchain conversation, not big data, but I just thought it was all kind of like intertwined and
I'm not quite sure what you mean by reclaim it. Like you wanna take back all the stuff that you gave out, or like what do you mean by reclaiming?
Well, when I was doing a little bit of research on blockchain, it was talking about how blockchain technology can also help to like help you to reclaim your digital identity by making it more encrypted, I guess. But I don't know if that's possible with big data and given the circumstances of like, you know, companies already having this data on you. So I don't know if that's possible.
So to tie into that, like big data and blockchain can tie in together. All blockchain means is it just means that data isn't centralized in one location, it's spread throughout a network. And so there's no reliance on just one source or one location. Big data, as David explained earlier, is just a very, very large collecting of things, data that doesn't even usually make sense, and combining it together to do analysis on it. And so to provide a little bit more information on that, like even with IoT coming into play, where we can get data off of machines, like their performances and how well they're running, what their temperature is, you know, what their service life is, et cetera, et cetera. Normally that type of data would just be consistent to one type of system or one application that monitors that data, right? But let's say I can now combine that with other sources, like when my user wants to, or when my customers want to buy another part because it's coming at end of life, or other things like it. Combine all that data into one easy location to be analyzed. That's what big data is. So blockchain would just be helping free up the location of not having one central location for a source of information.
That's a good explanation. Thank you, ZK. So, okay, I think we can jump to our final discussion topic, which is, I think, tie back to, I don't know if it was Izzy or Sharon. There to a point, I think it was Izzy, where people are willing to trust an entity because that entity provides safety, you know, whether it's government or it's a tech company or some enterprise, they are doing it already. And we now understand how they're doing it and their common framework, their ideology. The question is, can we leverage or recreate? And is there any way that we can challenge them on some of these areas? The reason I want to discuss this with you is kind of in the preparation for like the end of our program discussion, come up with a business model or to come up with some ideas that we think can help us to challenge towards the 3 enterprises. So this one is kind of, I think, tough, but I want to open up to discussion. Any ideas that you have, please feel free to share.
I mean, like one thought is like, I guess it depends on what that data is going to be used for. So if I'm Netflix, I care about the subscription, but what I really care about is churn. I want to make sure that the person doesn't cut their subscription after 30 days. And so if I can use personalization and data in order to drive engagement and minimize churn, I would want to think about what areas within the work of the kingdom is something like churn an issue, right? And what type of data would be helpful to us in managing that. You know, if it's like the utility function that you were describing earlier, where I'm basically taking that data and reselling it. You know, that's just kind of like advertising-based revenue model. That's different. I don't think that's probably less relevant, but I thought one of the things that you were describing before that we talked about in Chicago, about creating an app that would rely on individuals' data. There'd be some type of matching engine behind it for the purpose of finding mentors. Like the Summit mentorship program that Jay and Sharon are part of. It's interesting. They basically filled out a card that has data on them, and presumably the 15 or 20 students that are looking for mentors can read that data and find out, you know, who they want to connect with. I wonder if there's a way to scale that out so it's not dependent upon just the 20 people that fill that out. I mean, there's another 14 people on this call. I feel like that could be mentors. I wonder if there's a way to use the data that way.
Yeah, I think definitely like a great idea, and you know, we just need implementation. Tying back to the discussion, you know, let's say we have the ability, no matter what service that we are thinking. How about here? For the kingdom of God, right? Not necessarily that we want to all evangelize and, you know, like send out relevant gospel letter to people, like mentor matching or utilities or something we can contribute to the society, or a platform that we can create at scale, where let's say you can create all the data you can that I mentioned, you know, audio, pictures, and all of the stuff. Let's say if that's possible, what do you have in mind? Like what kind of ideas that you think is something worth implementing? I know we're talking about the mentee matching app. What else do you guys think it's worth a challenge?
I think this might be like far-fetched, but is it okay if I share maybe like after listening to your lecture, maybe like a long-term thing that I think is like pretty essential?
You should share it now. You're for free. Yeah.
So like after listening to your lecture, it just seems, I mean, I think the very first lecture, I think you've mentioned that data is like the 21st century gold or oil or something. It's like an energy source, like the new energy source. So after listening to this lecture, it seems like having that data gives us so much potential. Just like acquiring just access to the data. It's like oil. Like if you have like access to oil, you can just like sell oil. And because of the oil industry, like airplane industry comes out, like, you know, automobile industry comes out, like so many things could happen. So maybe in the long term, what we really need is like an investment in like iCloud service, like remnant iCloud service, because like right now, like all the businesses, I think you mentioned in the first lecture, how like all the business data and customer data are collected in like Amazon or Microsoft, and then they can do all kinds of like analysis. And also like Amazon, the one interesting part is that one enterprise or the organization that has the most number of economists is not actually Federal Reserve. It's actually Amazon. Amazon has like almost nearing like 1,000 economists like in their firm, and they can do so many different kinds of like analysis about people's like behavior, consumer behavior, so just so many things. So just to me, I think this is something that we can pray for like in the long term, because if we have like we in the future, like looking at like abroad, like there are going to be a lot of remnant businesses, like starting from cafe, restaurants, even like the social network service that David was praying about. Like if we can store all those data and like find a way to use those data in our cloud service, I think that could be something that value creating business.
I love it, and I think it's very visionary, because you're totally right. I think firms like Amazon, Google, they're not actually just running like a video platform like Netflix, right? They're actually enabling hundreds of different other businesses just because of what they have. I think this is something that if we can achieve together, it will be really, really powerful. You know, for example, there are 100 different remnant enterprise. How if we have this one entity or one cloud that has all the data, we can enable those business to run too. So I think it's a great idea.
Can I piggyback on that idea and ask you guys something? So, opinion. So basically, what we have talked about by far is an idea of creating a separate database that is kind of personalized for remnant business, right? I may be wrong, but is there any other way to, like, for example, unify all the databases that are existing right now, like in Amazon, Google, and everything, and give a new value to it from the gospel point of view, so we could be using that for the kingdom's sake.
Can you repeat your question?
So rather than creating a new database or separate database for only for remnants, but would there be any other way? I guess that would be better to create a process to unify all existing database right now and create a new value from that.
I think I get your idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm understanding correctly though, but what you're saying is you're gonna take all they have and aggregate and make it ours.
Yeah. Would that be possible?
That might be not possible. I don't know, unless we have access to Google's server.
Yeah, unless you pay millions of dollars.
Unless
really
you
possible.
hack into their server, I guess maybe, or hack into Amazon's. I don't know. But I think it's a good idea. Like, take existing data and aggregate. So that's a lot of business are actually built upon aggregation of open source data, not necessarily company collected data. So, you know, if you go to some weather website, right, all their weather data. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah. So all those data are actually open source, and they can do a lot of things with the open source data, right? If I know some area is gonna have drought or it's gonna get flooded, then I can, you know, do something beforehand. Like those are the things that people like, they scrape the internet, stuff like that. But enterprise data aggregation, I'm not super sure. But it's a good idea though.
So for me, I don't know if necessarily starting or doing any implementing of this technology is something that could help God's kingdom. I think first and foremost, what we can do is provide education, which is something we're already doing now, but to let people know that, hey, this is how the organizations are using your data to, you know, make you more you-centered, right? Because at the end of the day, all this data personalization is doing is a way to do manipulation, right? It's taking what you like, it's taking what you want, and tailoring the results or what you see to what your preferences are. Even if we do that, you know, for the gospel, is that truly, I kind of posed a question last week, like, is it something, is it manipulation or is it spiritual, right? So that's why I kind of have iffy feelings about how we can use this technology for the gospel. I think it's more of education and teaching our remnants and our businessmen and our professionals that this is how the world is becoming and how to not get influenced by it.
That's a great point. Yeah, definitely. We start with education, and helping, you know, all the remnants to see the reality, right? Tied to today's message, what's happening. If we can see the reality correctly, you know, we know what's going on under the hood, then, you know, we can, you know, with the filling of the Holy Spirit and the following the flow of the word, we can go ahead of the generation. So yeah, I agree with you, DK.
I have a
Go ahead.
about, like, kind of along with that line. Maybe I cannot. So I'm just kind of curious about other people's opinion, like other educators, maybe Gloria or Sharon or so I was wondering, so I mean, this personalization of data, I guess, can be very helpful, like in educating like children and growing generation. I was wondering, like, what we have right now, for instance, like Khan Academy or some sort of like personalized like learning services. Do you think how can that be also like improved with like in the future? Like, do you think that's going to be like how our education field is going to be headed, or is there any like better way that?
Yes. Great question, and I think yes. And you know, matter of fact, I think education are moving faster to digital, online learning, instead of physical, you know, classroom setting type of learning. And the reason I'm saying that is like what you mentioned, right? Coursera, Khan Academy, all these, like even like YouTube, you know, lectures. People are finding the content of education itself to be more personalized too. And if you look at all the curriculums that's available online, it's becoming more and more niche, and it's less general. It's more tailored to what you want to learn. And I think that's the flow of what's going to happen for education as well. So people are going to start selecting what they want to learn in a really, really personalized and detailed way. And on the point of view of an education providers, we want to have that data so we can provide that service. It's kind of the same thing. That's just my my opinion, but I think yes.
Yeah, I think it's so it's going to be very useful in the future, especially in the field of education. But I feel like there, you know, Khan Academy, for example, has been like existing for a while, and it's been very helpful for, you know, like students who are cramming for exams, like AP exams or whatever college exams, because you're right, like it's very personalized, very specific, curated, and tailored for very specific needs. But it doesn't really elicit any like true change, you know. It doesn't necessarily make you a mathematician, you just know the material. But I was just thinking about like this big data and what we can do to maybe help remnants. So like if like this is obviously very hypothetical, but like if I was like a company that collects data, like I would like for remnants to see what kind of data they're consuming, you know, like what kind of like if they see what they've been seeing, what they've been hearing, and what they've been the kind of data that they've been consuming without knowing, I feel like that could also help them to see like, oh, this is why I have these thoughts, or this is why I am the way I am, helping them to really understand themselves and the way their mind functions, what their cravings are, or how they're like what they're what they're drawn to. So I thought that could be very interesting.
Totally agree.
Or
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go first. You wait your turn.
I mean, this is such a just small idea, and I mean, like, currently in our organization, and especially in Korea, like, I mean, like, just in order to take like collecting like the data's, I mean, like the information about the remnants. I think like in Korea there is like 그 뭐야 대나무 숲 bamboo forest.
The anonymous chat thing.
Yeah, that one. So I mean, like, the most remnants, they're really really, I mean, like, really active in that the platform, so that like they usually like questioning like even just small things like about like how can I find my like girlfriend, or how can I make a girlfriend or boyfriend, something like that. But I mean, like, it's a really good platform that I really what I really thought is that's a really good platform, because they can share their own thoughts in a one platform, even though it's not really important that this is a correct or not, but like at least they can participate all together. I think that is the like the current in our Tarapon organization's really active platform, I think. So I mean, like, if we do have in the United States, like, there, I mean, every remnant, they're born in the U.S., and then there some might have like confused about their identity, but like if they can um like express their what they thought on that platform, maybe it'd be great both of us to we can give the answer, and as well as we can to collect their like just small informations. So yeah, just that's what I thought like after I hear your lecture. Yeah, another great idea. I think it's as simple as just an environment where, you know, our own organization or remnants can just share a one-liner, share a small thoughts, and receive answer. I think that in of itself is already super valuable, and you know, it's I think it's a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think because it's anonymous, like remnants are more honest. I think like in Tenamusup, like you just like pose a question, or like you talk about your questions to the person who's managing the Facebook page, and then the manager kind of posts it for the person who sent the questions or like their opinions. But I think like like if you have those things, you can realize oh, like a lot of remnants are really confused like in many things, like, so I think that's a great idea.
All right.
Yeah, and also I guess that will also serve as like an objective analysis of a self, which is kind of very valuable for psychological treatment as well, because, you know, all the treatment begins from the point when you acknowledge that you have a problem. And I guess as the data are personalized, so they're basically able to see the points about themselves that they have been overlooking, or they have never noticed. Those points, I guess, could be used for like a really great forums or team or trainings, disciple trainings.
Thanks for sharing.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Just that also, like, knowing the systems can be useful for non-believers as well, because it's gonna like shape the way we live. I feel like, for example, right now I can already see that the power, for example, in Mexico moved from the government to the people in the narco, and just because they provide safety, like, people are allowing them to take control over their lives. And I feel like when we do that with technology, it's not only going to affect people that believe, it's also going to affect everyone around. So just like being on the elite or having the privilege of knowing how data affects our lives, we could also like think bigger to something that includes non-believers, because we never know who is like who, I don't know, we can share the gospel with. So yeah,
Yes.
like expanding it out more than.
Oh my gosh. I was actually, hey, Izzy, if you ever make a company and you need an engineer, just let me know.
Sure.
I think all these are great ideas, and we should really pray about it. I mean, thank you guys for sharing. It makes sense to me in my perspective too. You know, definitely something that we're really think deeply about. So thank you. Yeah, I think we're way over time. um, I guess if there's more question, we can always discuss offline. Feel free to share anything in the group chat. And if nothing else, I think we can finish the course.
All right.
Thanks,
you.
Hsiao.
By the way,
Thank you.
thank you so much. And just an announcement. So I don't know if you guys have been doing the reading, but it's actually really important to read before each lecture. So next week's reading, I don't know if you guys have the PDF. If you don't have a PDF, please let me know. On the PDF, it's page 94 to 142 for next week's reading. So yeah.
And who is the speaker?
Huh?
Who is the speaker?
Oh, Eddie will be talking about cryptocurrency, which is an application of blockchain.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Adios.
Bye bye.